They told us there was only one rule. Stay awake for 72 hours. Not, try your best. Not, don't fall asleep if you can help it. No. Stay awake. If you sleep, you get sick. If you get sick, you don't come back. No one ever explained what sick meant. And in a town like Tom's Cog, when people avoid explaining things, it's because they've already seen what happens. My name's Aaron. I'm a deputy sheriff. Fresh out of training when all this started, still getting used to the badge, still believing I could make a difference. That belief didn't last long. The first time I heard about the rule was when Adam Fletcher came into the station shaking like he'd been dropped in ice water. His eyes were bloodshot. His lips were pale. He smelled like sweat and chemicals. I messed up, he whispered. Nick, my partner, tried to calm him down. Nick had been on the force for years. Tall, sarcastic, always wearing those ridiculous pink sunglasses even indoors. He'd seen enough weird stuff in this town to know when someone was in real trouble. What did you do, Adam? Nick asked. I fell asleep. The room went quiet. Even the radio crackle seemed to fade. I didn't understand the fear on everyone's faces yet. I thought it was an overreaction. Adam grabbed my sleeve with trembling fingers. Please, he said, don't let it take me. Take you where? I asked. His mouth opened, then closed. Like he couldn't say it. Nick pulled me aside. This is what I warned you about. Warn me about what? The condition. That was the word they always used. Not illness. Not infection. Condition. According to the rumors, something had been spreading around Tom's Cog for years. People would come into contact with it, no one knew how, and once exposed, they had to stay awake for 3 straight days. 72 hours. If they made it, they were fine. If they didn't, they disappeared. Sometimes they died. Sometimes they did worse. Adam had been exposed 2 days earlier. He was already past 48 hours with no sleep. He looked like a corpse that hadn't realized it was dead yet. Nick explained that people who got the condition started feeling drawn to sleep. Like something inside them wanted them to shut their eyes. And when they did, that's when it starts growing, Nick said quietly. Growing? I asked. Before he could answer, Adam screamed. Not a normal scream. It was wet. Like something tearing loose inside him. We rushed over just in time to see thin white strands sliding out of his mouth. They looked like wires. Or roots. They twitched and wriggled, stretching farther and farther, dripping with some clear fluid that burned holes into the tile floor. Adam clawed at his throat, choking, eyes bulging. I froze. Nick didn't. He grabbed his gun and fired. Once. Twice. 3 times. Adam collapsed. The white strands twitched for a few seconds, then went still. The smell hit me after. Chlorine. Ammonia. Rot. We burned what was left. They always burned the bodies. That night Nick finally told me the truth. Whatever the condition was, it wasn't a disease. It was something already inside us. Something that woke up when people slept. And now, Nick and I had been exposed. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. All I knew was the clock had started. 72 hours. And we couldn't close our eyes. Nick and I locked ourselves in his apartment. If this thing spread the way everyone said it did, we weren't about to risk taking half the town down with us. The blinds stayed shut. The phone stayed on silent. We called in sick, which in Tom's Cog was the closest thing to a joke. We had already been awake almost 24 hours by the time we realized what had happened. That meant we were staring down nearly 4 full days without sleep. Nick lined the kitchen counter with energy drinks, coffee thermoses, and a handful of pills I didn't recognize. Doctor approved? I asked. Nope, he said. But they keep truckers awake. That's good enough. The first day wasn't so bad. We played old video games, ordered greasy takeout, blasted music loud enough to shake the walls. Nick dug out his ancient Guitar Hero set. The plastic guitars were yellowed and sticky, but they worked. We sang horribly. We laughed too hard. It felt like we were at some strange sleepover instead of fighting for our lives. By hour 30, it stopped being fun. My eyes burned like I'd rubbed sand into them. My thoughts started drifting, slipping away mid-sentence. Nick caught me leaning against the wall once, knees locking. Don't you dare, he snapped, shaking me hard. I caught him too, face planted into the couch, already snoring. I flipped the whole thing over. He hit the floor with a curse, knocking over his coffee table. We were both laughing hysterically afterward, half delirious. It was stupid. But being stupid kept us awake. Cold showers became routine. We took walks around the block even at 3 in the morning, listening to frogs croak in the distance while the sky slowly shifted colors. Around hour 40, the hallucinations started. Shadows that moved when they shouldn't. Whispers that vanished when I turned my head. At one point I was convinced the fridge was breathing. Nick admitted he kept seeing something standing in the hallway. Tall, he said quietly. Just watching. We didn't talk about it after that. We chugged some foul-smelling drink Nick called Four Loko. It tasted like melted candy and chemicals. But it kept us standing. Barely. By the final stretch, we weren't making sense anymore. Nick paced in circles, mumbling. I'm done, man. I'm done. You got 2 hours, I said. 2 hours is nothing. I'm gonna stick my head in the freezer. He actually did it. I tried watching reruns of some sitcom, Family Matters, I think, but I kept losing track of what was happening. Scenes blended together. Colors smeared. Nick suddenly got this burst of energy.
Before we move on, please donate me in the form of subscribe.
We should prep, he said. Prep for what? For sleeping. Make it perfect. Clean sheets. Candles. Water ready. Like kings. I nodded like it made total sense. While he fixed his bed, I went to his car to grab extra blankets. The back seat was warm. Comfortable. I told myself I'd just sit for a minute. Just rest my eyes. What's 1 hour? Next thing I knew, sunlight was blasting through the window. My head was pounding. 14 hours had passed. Nick had crashed too. We stared at each other in horror when we realized. But nothing happened. No pain. No strands. No sickness. 72 hours were officially over. By every rule we knew. We'd survived. Nick made sandwiches like some kind of victory feast. We drank water like we'd crossed a desert. He drove me to work since my car was still at my place. Neither of us talked much. Never doing that again, I said finally. Agreed. But something in my gut felt wrong. Too easy. Too quiet. The condition didn't feel finished with us. And I was right. It took almost a full week before I felt normal again. My sleep schedule was destroyed. Some nights I passed out before sunset. Other nights I stared at the ceiling until morning. At work I'd zone out mid-conversation, missing pieces of reality like a scratched DVD skipping scenes. But physically, I felt fine. Too fine. Nick and I were put back on patrol together after a short talk with Sheriff Mason. I got the feeling the higher-ups were quietly backing off the whole condition situation, like something had resolved itself without explanation. Then June rolled in. The heat hit hard and fast. People complained about the drought, no rain for weeks. Everything felt dry and tense, like the town itself was holding its breath. When the first storm finally came, I was driving home from a long shift. The rain started slow. Just a few drops on the windshield. I pulled into my driveway as the sky opened up. The moment I stepped out of the car, something washed over me. Relief. Bliss. I dropped my groceries and stood there, letting the rain soak me. It felt right. Like I'd been thirsty my whole life and only just realized it. I lifted my arms. Tilted my head back. Opened my mouth. Drank it. I don't know how long I stood there. When I finally snapped out of it, my clothes were soaked through and the storm had almost passed. 35 minutes had gone by. That scared me. I called Nick immediately. "That's a symptom," he said after I explained. "Some people just stop like that. Especially near the end." "Near the end of what?" "The condition running its course." "So it's over." "Maybe," he said carefully. "Like when you sweat out a fever." I wanted to believe him. But strange things kept happening. Automatic doors started closing on me like they didn't sense I was there. One slammed on my foot hard enough to bruise. My shower water wouldn't stay hot. No matter how high I turned it, it went ice cold within seconds. I called a plumber twice. Both times he said nothing was wrong. Then there were the birds. Bright red ones. I'd see them perched on power lines or circling above empty lots. They weren't native to the area. Whenever I got close, they scattered like I was a threat. Each thing by itself was weird. Together, they felt like warnings. The worst happened one morning at the station. I was washing my hands when I looked up into the mirror. At first, everything was normal. Then my reflection started to change. My skin darkened. Cracked. Sagged. It peeled away like burning paper, turning to ash and floating down. Beneath it was a blackened skull. Empty eye sockets staring back at me. I blinked hard. It didn't go away. The skull's jaw slowly fell open. A low rumbling sound filled the room. Like someone saying hello through thick glass. I stumbled backward, heart pounding. The reflection's head tilted, just like mine. Then it rolled off its shoulders and hit the sink. The lights flickered. I ran. I grabbed Nick and dragged him outside before I even realized what I was doing. "It's getting worse, isn't it?" he asked quietly. I nodded. Nick rubbed his face. "There's one guy who might know something." "Digman. The creep from surveillance." "Yeah. But he's been missing. Probably dead." My stomach dropped. "So what do we do?" Nick hesitated. "There's something else." He told me about a ritual called a year walk. People would wander into certain wilderness areas and stay there for a full year and a day. No help. No contact. Some came back changed. Some never came back. But the ones who do, Nick said, they say it cures anything. Anything. Even death. It sounded insane. And yet. After everything I'd seen, insane was starting to feel normal. Before I could answer, a deep ache twisted in my stomach. Like something shifting inside me. And I knew. Whatever the condition was. It hadn't left. It was growing. The pain started 2 nights later. It wasn't sharp at first. Just a dull pressure in my stomach, like I'd eaten too much and laid down too fast. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was stress, exhaustion, bad food. But it kept getting worse. That night I woke up drenched in sweat, heart hammering like I'd run a mile. I didn't remember any dreams. Just terror. Raw and heavy in my chest. I rushed to the bathroom, barely making it before my knees buckled. My stomach cramped so hard I thought something had torn. Then it came up. Not vomit. Something else. Thin white strands slid out of my mouth like wet noodles. They were warm. And they moved. I gagged, grabbing at them, trying to pull them free. The moment it snapped, agony tore through me, like losing a tooth multiplied by 100. My heart skipped so hard I thought it would stop. I almost passed out. The strand dropped into the sink. It hissed faintly. The ceramic beneath it turned faintly blue. The smell hit seconds later. Chlorine. Ammonia. I leaned over the sink, shaking. The rest of the strands still hung from my mouth, swaying slightly, like they were alive. I couldn't pull them out. I couldn't cut them. There was only one choice. Swallow. I slowly leaned my head back and forced them down my throat. Each inch burned. It felt like choking on living wires. When it was over, I collapsed on the floor clutching my stomach for nearly an hour. Later that night I dug through Adam's old notebooks. His handwriting was frantic, messy, like someone racing against time. Over and over he wrote the same thing. Not a disease. A condition. Something already in us. Triggered. Strengthened. Awakened. According to his notes, whatever sore was didn't infect people. It escalated something that existed in every human. And in a few animals. Lions. Certain fish. I was so tired my vision blurred. Pages flipped in front of me. Then I realized. My hands weren't moving. Something cold slid down my throat. Like swallowing thick jelly. My chair tipped back as I scrambled away. My stomach felt full. Heavy. Like something had settled inside. I called Nick, running to the bathroom mirror. I think it's worse, I said. I'm coming, he replied. Before I could explain more, a violent pressure surged upward. Something shot out of my throat. A thick white tentacle slammed my phone across the room. I screamed. In the mirror, my reflection turned to ash again. But this time. It reached toward the tentacle. Like greeting an old friend. Behind the decaying reflection stood a massive shadow. Something darker than darkness. Guiding it. Teaching it. I tried to grab the tentacle, but it was slick, like soap. It thrashed, knocking over chairs as it stretched. I stumbled back and hit the light switch. The moment the room flooded with light, the tentacle snapped back inside me like a tape measure. The pain faded instantly. I stood there shaking. Light. Light made it retreat. When Nick arrived minutes later, I wouldn't let him come close. I can't control it, I said. I don't know how it spreads. We decided the only chance was finding Digman. But staying around people felt too dangerous. I packed clothes, cash, notebooks. I drove out of town. Away from everyone. Whatever was inside me didn't like that. I could feel it twisting. Struggling. Wanting something. Wanting people. The further I drove into the dirt roads outside Tom's Cog, the worse it got. The road barely deserved to be called a road anymore. Gravel turned to dirt. Dirt turned to deep ruts carved by trucks that hadn't passed through in years. My headlights bounced wildly as I sped up, desperate to put distance between myself and the town. Shapes lined the trees. At least, I thought they did. Tall silhouettes that vanished when I looked straight at them. My stomach twisted violently, like something inside me was being pulled toward the darkness outside. I bit down hard, pressing a hand over my mouth as a sour taste filled it. Streetlights disappeared behind me. There was nothing but forest. Then the car jolted. I hit a rock so hard my head slammed into the ceiling. The steering wheel jerked. I yanked the handbrake and skidded sideways, barely stopping before sliding into a ditch. The sudden stop sent a shock through my body. And that's when it happened. White strands exploded out of my face. From my mouth. My nose. My ears. Even the corners of my eyes. They slapped against the dashboard, wriggling independently like a nest of worms. Some stretched nearly 2 feet long. The smell flooded the car, burning chemicals and rot. My eyes watered.
Before we move on, please donate me in the form of subscribe.
I sat frozen, afraid even breathing might tear something loose inside me. Slowly, carefully, I shut the engine off. My face felt like it was leaking. I lifted my head inch by inch. The strands stretched but didn't hurt. They just waited. I looked in the rearview mirror. I expected to see that burned skull again. Instead, I saw myself. Pale. Exhausted. Alive. That somehow felt worse. Outside the windshield, shapes moved. Dozens of them. Dark. Charcoal-colored. Humanoid but wrong. They drifted closer from between the trees. A horrible understanding settled in my chest. They weren't coming to attack. They were coming to welcome. Something deep inside me stirred in response. Like recognizing family. I grabbed my flashlight from the passenger seat and stepped out of the car. The cool night air made the strands twitch. I shined the beam around wildly. The shapes flinched back when the light touched them. Good. Light still worked. I staggered down the road on foot, desperate to get farther away. A rusted sign stood crooked beside the path. St. Gull. I'd never seen that name on any map. Whispers floated through the trees. Low. Curious. My nose started bleeding. My head throbbed. I couldn't remember simple things anymore. What was that TV show Nick and I watched? What were the characters' names? Why did that matter? I dropped to my knees in the dirt, exhausted. The flashlight slipped from my fingers and rolled away, shutting off. Darkness rushed in. And with it, a presence. Something massive. It didn't move fast. It didn't need to. It was like the night itself was stepping toward me. When it spoke, the sound vibrated through my bones. Hello. My hand twitched weakly in a small wave. Hello, I whispered back. The strands inside me surged upward, stretching out eagerly. They wanted it. Wanted to connect. The presence reached toward me. The shapes around us leaned in. I understood then. This thing wasn't killing people. It was replacing them. Using us as shells. My laughter bubbled out, half hysterical. I was about to die. But then a thought broke through the fog. The dad from that sitcom. Carl Winslow. The name hit like a spark. Memory. Clarity. It hadn't won yet. With everything I had left, I twitched my thumb. The flashlight clicked back on. The beam blasted across my face and into the darkness. Instantly, the strands snapped back inside me. The presence recoiled like smoke in wind. The shadows scattered. The night returned to normal. Frogs croaked in the distance. Stars shone peacefully above. I lay there shaking, chemical streaks burning across my skin. For a moment. There was nothing. I don't know how long I lay there. Minutes. Hours. Time didn't feel real anymore. My muscles were numb and my throat burned like I'd swallowed fire, but the night was quiet again. No shadows creeping through the trees. No massive presence pressing against my thoughts. Just insects and wind. I slowly pushed myself up. That's when I heard footsteps. Soft. Careful. Someone was walking down the dirt road toward me. My heart jumped. I lifted the flashlight, ready to shine it straight into whatever came out of the dark. Instead, the beam landed on a woman. She looked ordinary. Middle-aged, kind eyes, wearing a simple jacket, blue, like a captain's coat you'd see on a ferry. She stopped about 6 feet away. "Miss, are you hurt?" she asked gently. "You shouldn't come closer," I croaked. "I'm sick." She smiled softly. "Oh no," she said. "That won't be a problem." I tried to crawl backward, but my arms wouldn't listen. She walked closer anyway and sat across from me on the dirt. "You came out here to get away from hurting people," she said. I nodded weakly. "That's very human of you." My stomach twisted again, but not painfully this time, more like something settling down. "This thing inside you," she continued, "it isn't meant to rule you. It never was." My head felt heavy, like roots were tightening around my thoughts. She gently lifted my chin so I had to look at her. "I won't lie to you," she said calmly. "It will not kill you. It will not control you. And you will not spread it to anyone." I wanted to ask how. I couldn't move my mouth. "You will feel better in the morning," she promised. She pulled a handkerchief from her pocket and pressed it into my hand. It had a small blue sunflower stitched on the corner. "Try to remember the nice lady who helped you," she said with a wink. Then she leaned forward and kissed my cheek. Warm. Human. And just like that, she stood and walked away down the road. I listened to her footsteps fade into the distance. The night wrapped around me again. I closed my eyes. Sunlight woke me. I was still sitting in the middle of the road, stiff and sore. My face felt crusted with dried residue. I wiped it away slowly. Scabs flaked off. I looked down. The handkerchief was still in my hand. Real. Blue sunflower. My stomach felt calm. Quiet. I tested my thoughts. Family matters. Carl Winslow. Harriet. Laura. Steve Urkel. I laughed out loud in relief. Everything was there. The fog was gone. I felt normal. Not cured. But in control. I stumbled back to my car. Blue stains marked the dashboard where the strands had touched. I buckled my seatbelt and sat there breathing. I called Nick. "I'm better," I said. "What? How?" "There was a woman. From St. Gall, I think." A pause. "You serious?" "Yeah." And, weirdly enough, remembering stupid stuff helped. "You sound insane." "Probably." I watched the sun rise over the trees. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't afraid. Whatever sore was, it was still inside me. But it wasn't winning anymore. Later, I realized something strange. I can't remember what that woman really looked like. I know she was kind. I know she wore blue. But every time I try to picture her face, there's nothing there. Just a feeling. Warmth. Safety. And somehow, that's enough. Because I'm alive. And for now, I'm okay.
The Silent Screams, the channel of interesting horror stories. If you are new on this channel, then don't forget to subscribe The Silent Screams and press the bell icon for interesting stories.